Welcome back to the channel. My name is Big John. Proud you be with us today. Today is going to be a little bit of a potpourri. We're going to cover 2 or 3 different things. The first thing I want to cover is in light of what happened last week in central and north Alabama is the concept of PACE. P-A-C-E is an acronym used by the military. It stands for Primary, Alternate, Contingency, and Emergency. Anything that is necessary basically for life. Shelter, food, water, transportation, communications, medical, you name it. We should have 4 means of securing that. We have a primary means. If primary goes down, we have an alternative means. If it goes down, we have a contingency plan. If it goes down, we've got an emergency plan. So, my wife and I are amateur radio operators, so you extras class. So using communications as an example, we would have a primary means of communication, which would be our cell phones, because we've got them with us most of the time. Believe it or not, there are times I forget mine. I know that makes me an anachronism in today's society, because most folks will come near forgetting their child and their cell phone, but I have forgot it. Our second means, if we can't get each other on the cell phone, where the cell tower's down, battery's dead, I forgot my phone over at the house, and we have kind of a lousy cell signal at the house, it would be an alternative means of communication. The alternative means of communication for us is a landline. So we still have a landline at the house. If it goes down, road grader comes down our dirt road and grading it because it's election time, and it cuts the phone line, which it does about once a year, we have a contingency, and that's amateur radio. So we're not going to get into 2 meters and 40 meters and all that good stuff. HF, VHF, UHF. But that will be our contingency. Friends of mine that live in Kentucky would be a contingency plan for them. As well, being able to communicate with them would be amateur radio. And then our fourth would be emergency. If everything else goes south, we may set up a schedule with people that we're friends with. And so I will be at the Dollar General at Northside every Thursday afternoon, or Thursday from 11:30 to 1:30. And we would actually have face-to-face meetings. Maybe we would be using couriers to pass messages, But everything that we would do and that we would need, we would have means of having it, of accomplishing it. People talk a lot in the prepper and survivalist about bugging out. Well, where are you going to bug out to? If you don't have a location, you're not bugging out. You're just a refugee. You're at the whim of whoever you run into. So what would be your primary bug out location? What will be your alternate? If you're going to meet up with somebody in convoy, what's your primary rally point? What's your alternate rally point? If you miss it in the time window, then you go to the second rally point on down the line. Your means of transportation. It's a lot easier if you've got a 1-ton pickup and a topper on it, or a camper shell that you can load up, as opposed to you're walking and it's everything on your back. That changes the dynamic of what you can move, how fast you can move. Your primary that's in the next state may need to be an emergency, which is in the next county, or just down the road a little piece to hold up till you can do something better. So that kind of takes care of PACE. The second thing I want to talk about today is going back to the idea of gear. We've discussed IFACs, medical. One thing I did forget to mention, and I almost forgot it again, I hate to plug people and services, but there's an outfit called JASE Medical. It's JASE, Juliet Alpha Sierra Echo. I believe they're in Florida, and they will set you up with your prescriptions, and you can get up to a year's supply from them. So your hypertensive medicine, antiarrhythmias, whatever that you need to survive, you can go through them. Now they're not a sponsor. They don't know I exist, and I wouldn't take money from them if they did. But that's something that you might look at related to the medical. After I have my medical squared away, if I did not already have one, the second purchase I would strongly consider using my disposable income on would be a handgun. Now, I don't care if you want to carry a revolver or a pistol. That's entirely up to you. If you look at the pros and cons of each and you decide that the revolver is the way to go, more power to you. Tickled to death. Myself personally, even though I do have a revolver and I do carry it on occasion, uh, most of the time, well, actually, I got two or three of them, but most of the time, I'm strictly pistol. Uh, my main thing is instead of 5 rounds, I've got 18. Uh, Manual of arms is really not different in the regard that, yeah, I've got a thumb safety I've got to deal with, but past that, it's a trigger press. And if I do have to have a reload, it's a whole lot simpler to bring that extra magazine up and seat it, as opposed to getting 5 or 6 or 8, depending on what revolver you have, little circles and 8 little circles when you're shaking like a dog crapping peach seed. But that's me. I have looked at it, the advantages, disadvantages, and this is the choice I have made. But regardless of what you choose, there's a few things I want you to look at. First thing is reliability. It must be 100% reliable. Now, I realize anything made by man will take a dump. And Mr. Murphy, when he wrote his law that anything that can go wrong will go wrong at the worst possible moment, I believe Mr. Murphy was an optimist. But it must be reliable. And where I'm going with that is, don't monkey with it. Yeah, the trigger may not be too great. Glock triggers stink. I grew up on 1911s, and they had crisp, relatively light trigger pulls. Glocks are long, they're spongy, they're creepy, they're terrible, but you can run them. But every time I pull the trigger, it goes off. So the only thing I mess with, for instance, on a Glock, is I will replace the sights, because Glock sights are trash. They're plastic, and I want a sight that is steel. I don't care if it's night sights. I don't care if it's got slogans on it, dots. It can be black. Flat black is perfect. Works great. I don't need the verse of the day on my front sight. If you got them, hey, that's great. All I want to be able to do is, if I'm running it one-handed and I need to rack the slide, I want to be able to rack that slide off a hard object, off my holster, my belt, table, you name it, without shearing that rear sight off. So, for instance, on a Glock, that's the only thing I would change. I would make sure I had steel sights. Now, when I look at it is, do I have Gucci parts? In other words, do I have some obscure pistol and they only made 20 of them, and I need a firing pin or I need a mag? Well, Glocks, bless the heart, they're cotton picking everywhere. I think the Glock 17 came out in 1979. It's the old days. You used to talk about when you went to a bait shop. Didn't matter where you was at, whether it was New York City or Tok, Alaska. You go in and get a box of 12 gauge and a box of 30-06. You might not be able to get 7mm Winchester short magnum, but you get 30-06 12 gauge. Well, it's the same thing with Glock. You go into any store, they're going to have Glock mags, for the most part. So if you need parts, you can get them. Parts rarely break, but sometimes they do. And that's, and I'm not selling Glock. If you want to run Smith & Wesson, Walther, Heckler & Koch, whatever you decide, that's fine. The only thing I would recommend, and this is like going kind of back to medical, when I talked to my primary care physician years ago when I first went and saw him, I said, Doc, I don't want any medicine prescribed to me. He's not been out 20 years. The reason being is we know the side effects. You get a brand new medicine that just passed FDA approval. We still don't know side effects. It may cause issues. Same thing with handguns. The handgun that came out this year may be the greatest thing since sliced bread. But if they only make it 1 year because it doesn't sell, am I kind of stuck with something that I don't have support for? And that's where you get in, again, your Smith & Wesson revolvers or your Taurus revolvers, which are basically Smith & Wessons, your 1911s, your Glocks, your H&Ks, Smith & Wessons, handgun, pistols, that again, that's entirely up to you though. Okay, and then last thing, but I'm going to keep this real short. We're fixing to go outside. I'm trying out my new remote microphone, hoping it's working, and we're going to shoot the 5x5 drill. And the 5x5 drill was developed by Bill Wilson with Wilson Combat. I think Ken Hackathorn was in on it as well. It's a 25 round skills test. There'll be 4 strings of fire. It'll be shot at 10 yards, and you're going to watch me shoot it. So, first string is 5 rounds, both hands. Second string, and now I shoot from concealment. Actually, the drill is you do not have to shoot from concealment. But since I carry concealed, I'm going to shoot from concealment. Second string is 5 hands, strong hand only. Or, excuse me, 5 hands, 5 rounds, strong. Well, if I could shoot 5 hands, I'd have it made, wouldn't I? 5 rounds, strong hand only. Third string will be 5 rounds, go to slide lock, reload, 5 more rounds. Last string is 5 rounds, both hands, 4 to the chest, 1 to the head. And that simulates your, or doesn't simulate, but it tests your presentation and your draw stroke, your trigger control, reload, strong hand only, and then being able to adjust your rate of fire. Because it's a whole lot easier to hit center of mass, your 8-inch circle here, but you have to go forward here and then slow down to get that hit in the head. And that's hard to do sometimes. You get your rate of fire down here, and then you go up and you throw this shot. And then he bases your score, which is your raw time, plus anything outside the zero down. Every point that you add up that's outside of the zero down adds a half a second to your raw time. You take it, and then he, like if you're less than or equal to 15 seconds, you're a grandmaster. Less than or equal to 20 seconds is master. 25 seconds is expert. 32 seconds is sharpshooter. 41 seconds is novice. No. And, well, we'll go over that. I've got it written on the target. But anyway, so we're fixing to do that. So any comments, questions, criticisms, put them in the comment box. If I can help you, let me know. And as always, I remain your humble and obedient servant, John Alsterbrook, and I'll see you outside in just a minute. Thank you very much.